brushed aside England in the 5th and final Ashes Test to complete a 4-0 series win and retain the urn in emphatic fashion. The Aussies needed just 3 days to claim victory in the day-night encounter, which was played at Hobart. Here's a look at the scorecard and how things went statistically. The Aussies in their first innings 303, England replying with 188. The Aussies in their second innings 155. Mark Wood 6 for 37 for the Englishmen. And England from a position of 64 without loss bowled out for 124 in their second innings. Zach Crawley 36, Scott Boland, the rookie, 3 for 18. Australia winning by 146 runs. The Australian left-handed batsman Travis Head was named player of the match and the series as well after scoring a century in the first innings. Head scored a total of 357 runs at an average of 59.50. England captain Joe Root says the series must be seen as a learning experience.
Yeah, it's been a frustration throughout. It's been a really tough tour for us. We've played good cricket in parts. We've just not managed to string a whole game together. And it's something that we have to learn from as a group. We have to keep looking to get better, learn from these experiences, not go away from here and keep making the same mistakes. So that's the challenge for the group moving forward. It won't be long before we're back playing Test cricket again, so there will be opportunities to turn that around.
Yeah, now let's hear from the successful Australian captain, the fast bowler, Pat Cummins.
Even as a professional cricketer, these are the series you have in your diary a couple of years out. So to be at the end of a 5 Test match series with so many positives, obviously winning 4-0, it's just huge. So really pumped.
Yeah, international cricket commentator David Brook now joins us to review what happened down under and the failure of this English team to put up a sustained challenge against the Aussies, and the reviews coming fast and heavy today, led by Ian Botham, Michael Vaughan, Alistair Cook, among those former captains putting their word in. David, how shattering was this experience for English cricket?
Yeah, fans have taken it pretty poorly, actually, Lance. Whether or not it was expected, and I think expectations going into the series was that with the lack of preparation, Australia were strong favourites. But it was the manner of the defeat. This was a hammering, and we're talking about the batting frailties in the West Indies team, but the batting frailties of the England top order, they end up with some pretty grisly statistics at the end of this season, at the end of this series, in terms of averages. Only 2 players averaging over 30, and some very, very disappointing performances, particularly from the batters. As Stuart Broad said, it doesn't matter what bowlers you play if you're being bowled out for 140. And just looking at that scorecard there of the 5th and final Test, just yet more batting frailties exposed.
Yeah, you spoke about a lack of preparation. So, they were pretty much into the England winter as they, got themselves ready for this Ashes series. But the bowlers seem to have come through pretty okay. They weren't bad for the most part. But the batting was awful.
Yeah, it wasn't as good as that, Lance. Where do you start? It's hard not to descend into a batsman versus bowlers thing, and I think it can descend into that. And ultimately, the team has to take responsibility. I was interested in hearing your conversation there with Fazir. The coach has to take some, responsibility for what went on, and he's also the main selector of the party. So, I think we're getting to a stage now where the buck has to stop somewhere. But we're seeing there Rory Burns, Hamid, Milan, Wokes, Butler, Pope, a number of failures in the England batting lineup, a number of people who failed to capitalise. So a lot of things to sort out, and a lot of questions being asked. And yeah, fans have taken it very poorly indeed.
Yeah, Joe Root knows that based on the results, his position is now under the microscope, but he was heard in a post-match interview saying that he is the right man to take England's cricket forward, and he is, fully confident that he wants to stay on in the position. Is his job in jeopardy?
Well, I think all the leadership team will be under review. I think the 2 people most in the firing line, Lance, at the moment, before you get to Joe Root, will be Chris Silverwood, the coach and the main selector, and Ashley Giles, the director of cricket. So the 2 people occupying the Phil Simmons, Jimmy Adams roles, if you like, in English cricket. And it was Ashley Giles' decision to get rid of the separate selector and putting that all onto Silverwood. Some pretty poor selection decisions were made. So those two are in the firing line. I mean, the coach, if it was football and a team kept on losing, you would replace the manager, you would replace the coach. And I think that's the first place to look, in my view. Not enough scrutiny. Joe Root, well, we saw in that interview just now, he keeps trotting out the same phrases like, well, you've got to learn as a group moving forward. And it's getting to the stage where you could put the same interview on a loop, because Joe Root's saying the same thing after every defeat, which suggests that he's running out of things to say to his players as well. But he's not directly in the firing line, mainly because of a lack of suitable alternatives, unless they bring in someone from outside the squad. But Chris Silverwood as the coach and Ashley Giles as director of cricket, I would expect to see them both out of their positions before the England Test match series against West Indies.
Yeah, and just to contrast what has happened to Joe Root, Pat Cummins, a dream start to his Test captaincy. Let's talk a bit about him.
Yeah, look at the benefit that change of captaincy's had on the Australian team. I mean, we expected Tim Payne to be the captain coming into this series, and Pat Cummins, that wasn't part of the plan, but he's taken to it, hasn't he? And he's brought this spirit and a wonderful infectious spirit into his captaincy. He's really taken to it, and it's definitely had a positive effect. I don't think anyone could look and say that it hasn't. Whether it would have been the same with Tim Payne, I don't know. But it certainly seemed to work with Pat Cummins. He really seemed to, the captaincy suited him. It helped his bowling. And, even when Cummins missed the Test match, of course, Australia still won. So it's not just about the captain, but it just shows you that change can be a good thing there.
Yeah, and speaking about Pat Cummins missing one of the matches and whatnot, then it brings me to my next question, the depth of this Aussie setup and the Australian team on a whole.
Yeah, the bench strength was great, wasn't it? Scott Boland coming in, Richardson and Khawaja. The players who were called up did fantastically well. And I guess England were trying to do the same thing. They didn't have the same strength in depth. People were coming into the firing line and not performing. They weren't able to do what India did in Australia in that wonderful series a couple of years back. So they weren't able to do that. And you'd have to say that the squad strength of Australia was much superior to England's.
Yeah, you know, David, before the series started, I was suggesting that I didn't think England would have been whitewashed in this series because I don't think this Australia team is as strong as many Australian teams that we've seen in the past 2 decades. Having said that, the end result suggests that they're significantly stronger than England. But there were periods in this series, weren't they, when it was just one batsman for Australia that really propped up their innings and made a big difference to the series. We remember the Travis Head knocks in different Test matches that sort of bailed the Aussies out. And the fact that they were bowled out for 155 in their second innings in the last Test tells you that there were times in this series when the Aussies weren't that good, and England's bowling was quite good. But no matter what the Aussies did, the England team was significantly worse.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. I mean, this is a tough place to play for any touring side, as we know. England's been on the receiving end of 2 5-0 drubbings. In 2006-07 they lost 5-0. In 2013-14 lost 5-0. Would have lost 5-0 this time probably if it hadn't been for that bit of rain in Sydney. Is this the best Australian team of those 3 series? No, definitely not. One of them, of course, had Mitchell Johnson bowling absolute thunderbolts. So it wasn't as good an Australian team, but the England team seems to have got worse. The other inquest going on amongst the English supporters and amongst English cricket fans is, and this is a debate that will interest you too, is whether there's been too much concentration on, England's white ball performances. Famously, they decided to prioritise the white ball. And, the English domestic cricket season now, there's a lot less first-class cricket being played in the middle of the summer. You get these lovely sunny days. We still get them in June and July, and there's no cricket being played during the day. It's just 2020. We've got this other competition now called the 100.
Yes.
So you've got 20 competition and 100 competition. So you're growing a culture of what some would call hit and giggle. I'm not suggesting I'm demeaning it, but it's kind of more of a kind of, how far can you hit it? And maybe some of the attention on first-class cricket, on red ball cricket, has been neglected. And I think the overall head of the ECB has said that's got to be corrected now. Tom Harrison has said, look, it's all very well but the pinnacle of what cricket fans want to see is a winning test match team. And it's great to have a winning white ball side and to do well in T20 and ODI, but ultimately you're judged by how well you do in these kind of marquee series still. And that's what the cricket fans want to see. So if you go too far away from first-class cricket and to the extent where there's not enough being played in the summer months, and too much of a concentration on white ball, and that is something going on, rumbling on behind the scenes. So regardless of the personnel, there's a kind of structural issue going on. Have English cricket gone too far in giving 2 or 3 months of the season simply to short form 20-over cricket?
Yeah, David, spot on as usual. We look forward to talking to you again. Thank you.
Thanks, Maria.
Of course, David Brooks there, our international cricket commentator. Well, a lot still to come on today's show, including a link with George Davis at the UEJFF Captain Horace Burrell Centre of Excellence as we get you up to speed with what's happening in the opening round of the Jamaica Premier League. We also have Jamaica schoolboy football. It's a Champions Cup segment. And we detail how the West Indies beat Scotland by 7 wickets in St Kitts to remain in contention for a quarter-final place at the ICC Under-19 World Cup.